How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the latest edition of the Doc and Jock podcast on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Did you happen to take in the NBA draft lotto?
Oh, man.
How awkward and awful is that? Best part of that whole thing was we now have a meme for life. We have a meme for life.
Luke Kennard.
Oh,
Why would the Pistons troll everybody and
that
send
was
him?
Great, dude.
Why would they do that?
Because they're the Pistons. They're the Pistons. Dude, they have a GM working right now without a president, and that GM's got to foot out the door, because whenever they hire somebody to run this damn organization, it is going to be over for him. And yet this guy's over there doing whatever GMs do when they're looking to get a second-round pick.
Yeah, we had less than 1% chance of keeping a first-round pick, but in the end, the Pistons started off with the best chance of getting 12, and they get 12. Luke Kennard just sitting there going, okay.
He made the best face ever.
It kind of had the look of a guy that knew that the team was going to lose 60 games next year.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
He's a 60-loss team, right?
That guy's looking like, can I trade spots with Devin Booker, please?
Yes.
Can I just go someplace else? Can I do anything else right now?
Man, this podcast, cuz, I'm really excited for. Obviously, when we have a potential to get the number one podcaster in the world promoting his event, we definitely are going to take advantage of it. Hopefully, at the end of the podcast, we're going to have an interview with Adam Carolla. He's going to check in with Doc and Jock for the second time, and it's going to be a fun conversation just about comedy, his work, and his appearance this Friday at the Royal Oak Music Theater. You can get tickets at adamcarolla.com. But first, I want to talk about the Surging Tigers, and a lot has come up because of the fact that they have been winning. We can talk about and debate whether there's value in them winning. We can talk about Ron Gardenhire, but I want to start with this because I think it's the most prominent discussion that people are having, and I think it's a little bit skewed based upon what the fans are thinking. Okay, remember that the Tigers had a team that was built with veterans, and they were on the cusp of winning a World Series. But remember that the team that was put together by Dave Dombrowski and then followed up with Al Avila had major holes. They did not have a bullpen that was anywhere near reliable enough to get you to that level. So what we said here on Doc and Jock, and specifically me, I said, look, once you evaluated that, you should have known you should have blown the team up a year before you decided. But now, because the Tigers are winning and they're not as bad as people think that they are, some talk and some prominent media members are coming out and saying, man, imagine if Ron Gardenhire was managing this team with all the veterans. No, remember that Ron Gardenhire, yes, he is an established manager that can get you wins, but in terms of what he did when he was in the postseason with Minnesota, there were some epic flameouts with Minnesota. I do believe that, he probably could have gotten the Tigers to win a series or more, but the team was nowhere near a World Series complete caliber team. So no, don't sit here and tell me that Ron Gardenhire, if he was the guy after Jim Leyland, would have got this team to the World Series. It's revisionist history. You got to remember, yes, you had an elite group of guys, but they also were put in positions to succeed and did not because there were glaring holes. I do believe that maybe you could have said that Game 2 in Boston could have been managed differently. But in the end, the Detroit Tigers in 2013, they had an epic opportunity. That was the team that could have done it under Jim Leyland, but it didn't happen. And so then you go to Brad Ausmus in 14, and it wasn't going to be a productive situation. So you should have rebuilt then. After 13, you should have rebuilt. So don't come in here and say that the Detroit Tigers would have been better with Ron Gardenhire. I think he's a good manager now at the right time. It's a perfect opportunity to have him. It's nice to see them compete. It's great. I don't sit here and get pissed that they lose. I know that, I would rather them be a bad team and get a top 5 pick, But I'm not upset sitting here going, okay, they're competing. They're coming back in games. They're playing okay. I'm not pissed. I'm a fan of the team. Just don't come in here and say that Ron Gardenhire could have took this team with the veterans to the World Series. Are you thinking that way, or what do you make of that kind of talk?
No. I don't think like that at all. The way I look at the way this whole thing has set up is you've got the right guy at the right time. And the thing about Ron Gardenhire that I like are these guys are out there playing for him. And if he has an issue with you, he addresses it. Last week we talked about Jose Iglesias and how he was loafing on certain plays and how he looked really disinterested and should have made a play or at least attempted to make a play, yet he failed to. Things got out in the media. Gardenhire was like, look, we're going to have a talk. Next thing you know, this guy comes up and he's hitting walk-off singles, walk-off home runs. He's doing everything that you need him to do, and he's helping you win games now. And that was a week removed. I mean, Gardenhire just had a conversation with the guy, and next thing you know, he's getting the absolute best and getting the absolute most out of this individual. And I think that's the one thing you can say about Ron Gardenhire right now is he's getting the absolute most out of this team. He is squeezing every ounce that he can squeeze out of these guys day in, day out. And you got to remember, he's winning games against a team that was predicted and everybody said was going to win the American League Central going away. And yeah, Cleveland's struggling right now, but he's out there winning games with a guy like Miguel Cabrera, the one of the best hitters in all of Major League Baseball on the bench. He's out there scratching out wins, 8-7, 9-8, scratching out these victories with basically hand-me-down guys. Nobody to write home about. You look, what you have on this roster right now, you've got an aged Victor Martinez who is only here for a paycheck. The only reason he's here. He looks disinterested. Miguel Cabrera, again, doing a DL stint and comes out and tells the media that he's through playing hurt. He's done playing hurt for these fans because they crush you when you sit there and you play through injuries and you don't put your numbers up. This is a Miguel Cabrera who has failed to learn the names of his teammates. He refers to them as bro and dude. This was supposed to be your leader, the guy who sat there and led your clubhouse, the guy who was supposed to set down an example for these younger players who were coming up. And he has basically turned his back on these young kids and has said, you know what? I'm here and I'm just playing it out. And now he's hurt and he doesn't even want to sit there and be bothered to sit there and try to strap it up and go out there and give you a day's worth of work, whether it be as a DH or playing first base. So this is a guy who has checked out, I don't want to say on the season, but he doesn't seem to believe in what's going on here. So the only person to hold all this together right now is Gardenhire. And he's out there competing with a team that I don't think anybody gave a chance to. You didn't give a chance to. I didn't give him a chance. And I'd be remiss to say that I've only checked into, I don't know, I don't want to say a handful because it's way more than a handful of games, but I'm not watching this team like I was watching them last year or the year before that or 2 years before that. Do you know what I'm saying? It's been one of those things where it's almost kind of been a hard watch, but this team's doing some things and they're competing right now. And I think that's all we can ask for and that's all we can expect is to have them compete. And that's what we want from this team is to go out there and compete day in and day out. I mean, this team could surprise and could make it to the playoffs because Cleveland has been such a disappointment. I mean, is that far-fetched for me to say that this team could make it to the playoffs? I mean, I don't know if you're buying into the hype.
Remember, we're still talking about a team sub 500.
They are.
And but
look at what's going on in this division. This division is awful.
Yes. That's why I think people are reserved in their excitement is that, yes, the Tigers are winning, but also part of the reason of the success is the AL in general is garbage. It's not that well. And here's the best part. The Tigers obviously have not put their best foot forward in terms of putting a team out there. Look at all the injuries, and they're still getting victories in the AL Central. The division in of itself is not that competitive. It's not that good. A team around 85 wins could get into the postseason. That's how ridiculous it is. And the Tigers could back into it, but not because of their talent, but because of the fact that the division is not that competitive. Whereas, meaning, yes, the Tigers got guys that are working hard. They can compete and go out there, but in another year where there were better teams, an 85-win team does not qualify for the playoffs.
Let me put it to you like this. Going into this season, I thought this team was for sure on the hook to lose at least 90 games. At least 90 games. I thought, look, there's no way they're gonna win that many games. You're losing at least 90. I could maybe see up to 95, maybe 97. right now, Ron Gardenhire's got me looking like a total fool because at this moment right now,
they're in games. It's good.
Yeah, they could lose maybe 85. So I say that, but that's 5 to 10 games difference. You mean to tell me that your manager is the difference between 5 or 10 games on a season? That was what we wanted Brad Ausmus to be.
So now I want to get your assessment of your excitement level or your thoughts regarding the Detroit Tigers, okay? Because prominent figures in the media, prominent figures that are looking at it, we've said it, that basically it's probably in the Tigers' best interest to lose a lot to get up there in the draft. But others will say, look, remember in baseball, the other side will say, you don't necessarily have to have the number 1 pick in baseball if you have decent scouts across a wide draft. If you get prospects and utilize trades, free agency, and the draft, you don't necessarily have to have the number 1 pick to build a talented roster. And so we got a message, or I pinched a message on Twitter because it was definitely one that was put out there, and I think it really represented the sentiment of a lot of fans. And it's from Kyle Sherwin on Twitter. He wrote, "Dear Tigers, please stop winning. You're delaying the inevitable and the only way to get good again. Signed, Sane People." And so I kind of pinched it and said, what do you guys think? Is this a good take? Is this a bad take? Because right now there's a couple sides kind of forming in this argument with the Tigers season. And the one side says, great, they're winning. It's fun. There's no expectations. Let's just go out there and see what happens. And the other side are like, guys, what is the avenue to get this team rebuilt and into title contention? And they go, winning doesn't solve it. They don't care. They just want the Tigers to lose as many games, and not because they hate the team. That's the part that people get confused. If you're rooting for them to tank or lose a lot, it's not because you hate the team. It's because you're saying to yourself, what is the path to get to a title? And people will say, lose out, get as many good draft picks in the top 5 because most talented players are in that top 5 that you can go out there and pluck and get, and you can get a bunch of guys that you can stockpile in here. So there's a couple camps developing on Twitter, and they go back and forth. And then a great response that was sent through us from Back Off Man, I'm a Scientist. He wrote, "Dear Kyle, the object of sports is to win. Tell a player to tank and they'll tell you to kiss their ass. I'd rather be the 69 Mets instead of the 03 Tigers. Sincerely, fans who appreciate winning." That's what I love about the power of our Twitter page, is that we can engage in these debates and I can go right to the source. What do you think? Tank? Or you know what? Let's just watch and see what happens. Because some prominent figures are like, no, you fans are stupid, and this is irrelevant, that just doesn't matter, the best way to win is to lose, and this is stupid that the Tigers can't even lose properly. What say you?
I think there's an argument to be made on both sides, right? If you look at what the Tigers have done in the way that they've really helped to repopulate their minor league system, it was by making a trade. It was through trade. And that was really what helped make this team compete for so many years, was trading away assets. Dave Dombrowski was one of the best at it. And one of the assets that helped repopulate your farm system the most and gives you a lot of hope for the future was trading away a guy like Justin Verlander. Now, Justin Verlander, the Tigers acquired him with the 2nd overall pick. You can make an argument, you can make a case both ways, because I don't think this team's going to compete this year. I don't think you think this team's going to compete this year. I don't think this team's going to compete next year. I think your window when you start to really make a push and really look at maybe winning a World Series, winning a division title, and doing all the things that we want the Tigers to do is in 3 years. So what you can do is you can go ahead and win now, and you can have guys out there winning. That's fine. But I think what you have to look at doing is you have to figure out who you want on this roster in 3 years. And then you have to start to pare away pieces, trade guys away, to get more prospects in that are going to be on this team in 3 years. So a guy like a Nick Castellanos, if you feel Nick Castellanos is going to be here in 3 years and he's going to be the piece that's going to help put you over the top when you need to win, or he's going to be the locker room leader that you need, then you keep him. Otherwise, you trade him away and you get as much as you can get for him. All right? I mean, I'm not saying you go out and you get a Verlander deal, because I don't know if he's worth what Verlander was worth, but you go out there, you trade him away, and you get pieces in return. We've already talked about trading away Jose Iglesias. I love the fact that he's helping you win games right now, because all it does is boost his value. Because at some point, you've got to trade him away because you have a logjam of shortstops on this team. You've got like 15 shortstops in your minor league system, so you need to start moving some of these guys, just get them out of here, or you need to place them at different positions on the field. So Iglesias has to go. Michael Fulmer's a guy that we talked about, and a lot of people it's split right down the middle with him, right? Because he is an ace. Aces don't fall off trees. But he's probably the best commodity you have to be able to go out there and bring in a nice haul like Verlander did. So do you trade him or do you keep him? Will he be here in 3 years, and will he be the ace of this staff in 3 years? Or is he going to have more setbacks with injuries, or is he going to be hurt? So you have to kind of gauge and kind of feel this process out. And at some point, you've got to be smart enough to know who you want and who you see your future being built around. Like, I think we both agree, Candelario, you're building your future around. It sounds like Faedo is going to be a guy who you're going to build your future around. So these are guys who will be here in 3 years and that we want here in 3 years. Right now, though, what do you do? How do you navigate this, and who are you going to get rid of? Because look, what you're seeing right now from the Tigers is nice. And yeah, I think they could win the AL Central. I say that because Cleveland's been an absolute dumpster fire, and Minnesota can't get out of their own way. So who's in front of you? Those are the only two teams in front of you. Right now, when we're recording this, we're 1 game out of first place in the American League Central. I don't think that's going to last. I don't think you think that's going to last. But if you can beat up on Cleveland, you can beat up on Minnesota, sure, why the hell not? Go ahead and do it while you can do it up until the trade deadline. And at the trade deadline, you really have to look at what you got going on here. I think the best way to build a team in baseball is to trade away known commodities for your prospects, repopulate your farm system, and then bring these guys up and have a group of guys. Do it like Kansas City did. Have a group of guys who all come together at just the right time. That's what the Chicago Cubs did as well. You're seeing it's the way of the future. You're going to trade away commodities that you have now for 2-3 years down the road, and then in 2 or 3 years down the road, you're going to bring up this group of guys, and maybe you add a free agent here, maybe you add a free agent there who kind of puts you over the top.
The other relevant piece of news with the Detroit Tigers involves Miguel Cabrera. Huddled around the media earlier this week, and he kind of said, people were checking in, hey, when you coming back? And he said, look, I'm not coming back until I'm ready. And he basically said, and the way the media kind of portrayed it was, he was kidding, kind of half kidding around. He's like, playing hurt, you don't really get any credit for that. I've done that in the past, and fans crush you when you're not performing. And so he said, I'm taking my sweet-ass time. Not to quote him, but, in essence, to paraphrase, I'm taking my sweet-ass time, and when I'm ready, I will show up on the diamond. And so I don't think it got the level of heat that many people thought it would, because people say, that's kind of how he talks. He talks tongue-in-cheek and things like that. But as a psychologist, I definitely read into those kind of subconscious type things and say, well, if you say it with your words, it means you thought it, which means he's hearing a little bit of the negativity, and he's hearing a little bit of the fact that people are questioning him, like DocNJock sometimes on their weekly, episodic podcast that's streamed nationwide. And he's hearing that, should he be traded? Are his best years behind him? How many games is he going to play every year? So he's hearing a little bit of the noise, and he's chirping a little bit, and it's classic passive aggressiveness. It bugs him, but he's like, what? Mid-30s, I get a fat check every couple weeks. You know what? This team, great, they're winning. The heat's pretty low. There's no pressure. Shit, I can just sit down and just wait till I'm 100%. I got a little of an ache. I'm not really kind of pushing it to get back. And I guess I can understand it, but the only part I have a problem with is you never say it. Period. You just don't say it. We know it. Look, we all call into work. We all wish when there's sunny days, you're like, man, I got to do this and that and that. What can I do to get out of it? We've all done it. But we don't go out publicly and say, yeah, I skipped out on work to go hang out at the beach. Some people are stupid enough to post it on Facebook so their boss sees it. But all we're asking is just go about your business. And even if you're joking around, this is not the way to joke.
He's been real feisty with the media lately. I mean, he's come out and either he's been so indignant or he's been so stubborn on certain things. I mean, you seen his comments with Robinson Cano, where he's like, Robinson Cano didn't use PEDs. He didn't cheat. Look, Robinson Cano is serving an 80-game suspension. I know he's got a broken hand right now. He's going to be on the DL for a minute. But this dude's serving an 80-game suspension, and he's not even going to attempt to fight it. Look, if he didn't do it, he'd be out there fighting it because you're serving an 80-game suspension. I ask you this. You're going to sit for at least a month, right? Maybe 6 weeks with a broken hand. I don't know about you, but maybe 30 games. You don't even play 30 games in a month. Maybe 30 plus 14. So maybe 45 games you might miss if you got some double headers in there and you played every single day during this 6 week span. So you mean to tell me this guy's going to sit there and end up losing another 35 games? if you played every single day for 80 days straight? Get out of here, man. That's not how that works. Miguel Cabrera, he really sometimes needs to check himself. He gets so wrapped up in whatever he's got going on, he just opens his mouth and inserts his foot. And you're right. Think it all you want. Don't say it. At certain points this season, he seemed like a real crybaby. Seemed like a real whiner. And I don't know if baseball just isn't fun for him anymore, or if he just doesn't like all the pressure. You got to realize, you're the one who signed a $30 million a year check to sit there and be a face of an organization, to come out and play baseball and be the leader of a team. And if the pressure gets a little bit too hot for you, I'm sorry. Nobody sat there and held a knife to your throat saying, hey, you've got to sign this contract. You got to take this check. You've got to be the face of the Detroit Tigers organization going on into the future. Nobody did that. Nobody did that. I remember when you signed that check. I remember how happy you were. I remember when MLB Network cut into you, your wife, not your mistress, your wife, and I think at the time you had 2 kids, and 2 of your kids were climbing all over you, and you were so excited. I remember that because you just signed the biggest check in baseball, bro. So don't give me this crap about how, it sucks to have to play hurt. Guys play hurt all the time. And don't give me this crap about how your boy Robbie Cano does everything the right way because he's serving an 80-game suspension for a reason, dude.
All right, before the break and before we talk about the Detroit Lions and the news that was made last week and how this is going to progress for Matt Patricia and the Detroit Lions, major news, a couple of bullets, and we'll talk about this topic next week for sure. We'll get in depth. It was announced earlier on Wednesday, Michigan State's going to fork over $500 million to the families of the Larry Nassar victims and things like that. So we'll talk about that as more news comes out next week for sure about the impact on the university. Is this a way to begin the closure? Is this just, throwing money at the problem? And we'll do our due diligence researching the news that was made earlier Wednesday. But major news in terms of the sporting landscape was made earlier this week in terms of, in terms of legislation. Out in New Jersey, Chris Christie kind of threw out the idea that he wanted to have gambling more across the country. And so he threw out, hey, I want to have gambling in my state. And so that kicked off a lawsuit, and the Supreme Court, it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, for those that didn't know, and they ruled that, hey, the ban against legalized sports gambling, only to have it in 4 states, is unconstitutional, which opened the floodgates, and everyone was like, whoa, this is major news. And it is major news because of the fact that the ramifications of that decision, it literally means that any time an individual state can decide, hey, we can make sports gambling legal. And now in a state in Michigan with 3 casinos, that could mean the development of major sports books, gambling parlors, things like that. And I think it's a good thing. I think that if the government takes the revenue, the VIG or things like that people got to pay to gamble, and they actually add to funds and add to services like the roads and things like that, if they don't just say, hey, okay, if it generates $500 million, we'll just take that out of the budget. No, add to the budget. You can do a lot of good things with it. And with the money coming in, the part that I look at is, okay, you're going to get weed money. The government's going to get weed money, gambling money. What are you going to do with it? How is this going to help the people? And if part of that money goes to helping those with addiction problems and things like that, you do know that when something like this happens, a couple people are going to fall by the wayside. They're going to mortgage their future and let their addiction get out of hand. You do know that's going to happen. It's going to eventually get to the point where some people can't handle responsible gaming. But it's one of those things where the money's too great. You have to go out there and take advantage of something like this, tax it, and then you have the opportunity to go out there and really take advantage of some money coming in. And I think it's fun. If you can do it responsibly, go down to the sports book, drop $30 on a Tigers game. That's fine if you can handle it responsibly. And it will take away, in my opinion, those nefarious people like bookies and things like that, because now it's more transparent. It's going to be regulated, taxed. It'll be more out there, and people are doing it anyway. So I don't think it's going to be as big a deal as people make it. It's just now people can do it out in the open, and I think it's a good thing. It'll make sports more entertaining. It'll make sports a little bit more interesting for those of us that drop some money. And in the end, it's a free country, and a vice like gambling has always been there. Let's take advantage of it, tax it properly, and let some citizens take advantage of it in a good way.
You ever go to Vegas?
Yeah.
You ever go to the sports book in Vegas?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, right?
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. We've got how many casinos here in the Metro Detroit area? I see no reason why sports betting shouldn't be allowed. If you want,
the issue is though the people that have it is though the college game. Are you going to throw some games?
Look, I get it, but if if your local and your state government get involved, it should be all on board. And again, I use the word should. So don't quote me that there's going to be no nefarious actions taking place. But I think it's a good thing. Here in the Metro Detroit area, like I said, we have so many casinos around us, right? Even if you go a little bit to the western side of the state, you've got casinos out that way. It should be allowed. And if you're in the Detroit area, if you really want to go make a sports bet that badly, all you got to do is cross either the Ambassador Bridge or go through the Windsor Tunnel and head over to Windsor, because they do it all the time. I don't see a point. I don't see any issue with it. I don't see how this is a bad thing. Again, like you said, if done properly, and if either the VIG goes or whatever, if a portion of those proceeds go towards, I don't know, A, fixing roads, B, reinvesting in mental health in this state, which we haven't seen since John Engler sat there and left office. And again, there's your buddy with the $500 million going to Larry Nassar victims. So you got that guy screwing things up still in this state, this time at Michigan State, or just reinvesting it into schools. There is a way to sit there and take this money and do some good with it. Yeah, there are people who have problems. Some of those people will fall by the wayside. Again, this is a for the greater wealth of the people, and there will be some collateral damage. It's just one of those things.
And for Michigan, likely, legislation will be put in place, and probably most people who are in the know believe it'll be a year. So there'll be some time to talk about it, plan it out, and I think that's right.
Yep.
Don't rush into it. 2019, middle of the year, May, June, I think it's a good time, and that's what it is. People gamble. I just think that now it's legal, and let other states take advantage of it, and I think it can be a good thing. But there will be problems. There will be things that have to be worked out in terms of how it's going to take place and things like that, how it's going to be implemented, where and when people can gamble, and how much. Probably, I think what people are saying is about 1%. It will be the VIG or the
what the state
integrity tax on top of it, which means that, hey, if you drop a $10 bet, you got to pay $11, or you got to pay more to make the bet, and then you don't get that back. That dollar is like a tax to play, and it basically pay to play. And that's it. That's what it is in Vegas. If you drop, there's a certain percentage you got to pay on top of what you bet, and that goes right to the house.
Yep.
And that's
so
what it is.
In Vegas, if you make like a $50 bet, you got to pay $55. Exactly. And you're not getting the $5 back.
Exactly. And that's how it goes. And I think that's fine. That's fair. And I think that the casinos hopefully do not have a monopoly on it and just get sports books there. I hope that it's open to everybody to take advantage of it and things like that. So we'll see how it progresses. It'll be something fun to watch and things like that. You can bet. Maybe in the future, if they say on anything, you can maybe bet one day on how long Doc and Jock will go. Will it be a 50-minute show, or will it be a 2-hour show and things like that? So we'll see how this progresses, but some bad stuff might come along with it, so we shall see. All right,
stay with us. Over.
All right, stay with us. We're going to come back. I know Adam's been waiting to talk about the Detroit Lions and the Matt Patricia story, and then hopefully at the end of the podcast, stay with us. The number one podcaster in the entire world, most downloads ever, is going to be spending some time with Doc and Jock. Stay with us. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc and Jock here for our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. Why do we use them? Super easy to use. We've recorded over 900 weekly podcasts. We've only used one host site. That's how we were able to book great guests. That's how we were able to develop a following, not only across the country, but even overseas. If you're looking to start a brand new project and you want to develop a relationship with a bunch of supporters, you want to grow a Twitter page, you want to grow a following, the first thing you got to look at is, where am I going to place all the shows? Where's the host site? Where is the place where people can go and click? And if you send them a link that doesn't work, you lost a follower. People do not care and do not have patience anymore. If you send them a bad, broken link, you lost a follower, you'll get a negative review on iTunes. And if you check ours, we have very few negative reviews. We're very appreciative, and it's largely due to our host site. Go check out Podomatic.com if you're looking to start a brand new podcast. Man, cuz things were rolling along for the Detroit Lions. They had their man. They had their guy. And everybody was like, this is the guy that's going to take us to the promised land. Vito and I did our part. We went out there, tried to break the curse of the Detroit Lions, wanted to bring them good karma. You thought that, okay, with the draft, you maybe had opportunities to go out there and improve the squad. You're just ahead of OTAs, rookie mini camps. And then the bombshell broke last week. And I was like, no, the Detroit News just plugged in Matt Patricia's name, and they were able to find out some things that the Lions definitely did not know about, which has come out to be shown that the Lions had no clue. The entire NFL didn't know. The Patriots didn't know, and that's a topic in and of itself. But Matt Patricia was indicted for an allegation of sexual assault 22 years ago. In the end, the woman did not show up to court, and the case was dropped. And so with that, it was kept under wraps for 22 years. And what it must have been like for Matt Patricia to live with that, probably in the back of his mind wondering, well, maybe after 5-10 years, nobody's asked me really all about this. Maybe it can be in the background, but bam, smack dab, you get to the Lions, and a reporter, a journalist, found it out. And so I want to ask you quickly, before we talk about maybe the ramifications of it, what'd you think when you heard the news? Were you surprised, or were you like, oh, of course, the Lions? It had to be. It just had to be.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
I was taken aback by it. I was like, really? Matt Patricia? Like, everything that you know about Matt Patricia, he's supposed to be squeaky clean, right? He's supposed to be
at 21 and on spring break.
Oh no, I get it.
Most aren't.
I get it, but nothing like this. You know, sexual assault's a big deal.
Allegedly,
that's not a little thing. It's not a little crime. There's something there, right? And I'm not saying that there's something there because it's what the allegations are. I'm just saying that's
something happened.
Yeah,
that resulted in.
That's a big issue. That's not something that you just turned a blind eye to. So when I was reading through the Detroit News article, I was like, holy crap. Like, how did the Lions not vet this out? How did nobody know about this? And then as like the days just kind of go on, and now we're almost a week removed from this, it's just like, holy crap. Nobody ever investigated this. Nobody ever followed up on this. Nobody ever looked into this. How? How do you not? And I think the big issue with all of this is how the Lions look in this. Because instantly, Rod Wood comes out and he's like, yeah, we didn't know anything about this. Like, hey, bro, why don't you just say no comment and then go do some investigating yourself? Like, don't open your mouth. Just be quiet. And then the Patriots end up coming out saying, yeah, we never knew anything about this either. I'm flabbergasted that nobody did any due diligence looking into this. Now, all that being said, I don't think Matt Patricia, I don't think this would have excluded him from being picked by the Lions. I think this was Bob Quinn's guy since day one. The moment Bob Quinn took over, he had always had an eye on bringing Matt Patricia in. And I don't think if there was actually a sexual assault case that took place, much less the allegations, I think this was Matt Patricia's job day one. Jim Caldwell was just kind of keeping the seat warm for Matt Patricia to come in. So I don't think this ever prevented Matt Patricia from taking over or getting this position. It just blows my mind that it was never researched. There was never any follow-up. Everybody seemed like they were caught off guard and blindsided by this. Matt Patricia's press conference, I think, what was it, last Friday, I don't remember exactly when. It didn't really seem to do a good enough job to kind of quell whatever questions anybody had. I feel like he started his press conference really, really hard and really, really aggressive and thorough. And then as it kind of went on, he petered out, and it just...
They yanked him off the stage.
It just kind of seemed like... It seemed like he didn't want to say anything or address anything, and then he just kind of kept giving the same old answers, and eventually they kind of wore him down, and he let up on this was never brought up, we never talked about it, and it just, in the end, it made the Lions look kind of ridiculous. And it's just like, of course, it's the Lions, right? Of course they have to look ridiculous. Why can't we just get a football team that does things the way football teams should do things? Instead, you get the circus in town.
Again, and the circus continues, it's probably going to be talked about, and the worst part is that the woman's going to be talked to by reporters. They're probably going to ask, and if the Lions do make the playoffs...
They've already gone to her.
Yeah,
she doesn't even want to talk about it.
I hope that's the case, is that if she wants closure and she's empowered to say, look, I'm putting this behind me...
Hold on.
I hope it's
Be careful what you say here, because what you're saying now is you hope this woman just shuts up.
I hope
that's not right.
No, I said I hope she's empowered, that if that's her choice, that she decides that, okay, you know what, I'm not going to let maybe a big fat check by ESPN come in and influence her if her true intention is to just say, you know what, I'm going to let this go. If this was a scenario where we were both drunk and things happened, if she's empowered to just let this stay in the background and not let this be a significant part of her life, if she's empowered to do that, then that's her decision and things like that. But, you know, when big dollars roll in and if ESPN wants to pursue it, they'll probably be like, okay, let's let this lie for a minute. We'll let a couple months go past, and then if the Lions make the playoffs, let's say they start 6-0, maybe they go revisit it and say, hey, what actually happened? What is her side? Because that's the big missing block, is what exactly happened. And, some people have speculated, well, maybe something did happen in terms of some kind of sexual interaction, and now we're left to interpret, was it consensual or not, and things like that. But at this point in time, I think the stance that a lot of people and our supporters took was, they're like, hey, innocent until proven guilty. He's our football coach. We support Matt Patricia and the Detroit Lions. Overwhelmingly, 85% said we don't even care. And that's where it's at in this day and age, is that it's a new coach. The fans of us.
I take huge issue with that. I think you should
but
care.
It's tough.
I think you should care.
But the fans don't. And in large part, they don't.
And the worst part is reading all the comments and reading what everybody either responded to or responding to tweets or Facebook posts. This was done 22 years ago. Why are we bringing this up? Because this is news. This is news. Like I understand it might not be real relevant to you right now, but this is news. There was something that took place, enough for an indictment to take place, right? And that being said, that means that there were enough jurors who listened to the evidence and were like, yeah, okay, we need to do a further investigation. Now, that further investigation never got done because whoever this victim was, or the alleged victim was, said no. But this was news. There was something that took place. It should be investigated. And look, whether anything else goes forward from this, I feel like it should have been brought to the public's attention, and it was. And everybody talks about how the Detroit News is horrible for doing this, and they've got a grudge with it. No, this is news. This is what they do. This is what investigative journalism does. And I'm sorry that you can't comprehend this, but this is the biggest issue with journalism at this point right now. Your investigative journalism departments don't get any money, don't get any financial backing. That's why they're so small. That's why you don't see any more things for Ruth to the Rescue, right? That used to be investigative journalism. You don't have that anymore. You don't have these people who go out there and investigate things and follow up on leads. You don't have the money or the manpower to do it. That's an issue. So I applaud the Detroit News for going out and finding this article and following up on this and being better than your football team, because your football team is trash.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, how the media will address it. The fans, the players, many people will say, look, just based on what he said,
goddamn lying.
They still have support of the majority of the fan base. And I think one aspect that will help Matt Patricia, if the Lions win, most people will say this was, a hit piece, and they won't even give it that much credo as much as you did. But if they lose, and there's those that say, hey, this is something that you guys let go of a winning coach who was squeaky clean. You also brought in a guy that right now, strike one. I would give it at least a level of a strike one, like, hey, you should have at least told the crew and not let this come out like a bomb that it was. And that's how it came off. And that's how it came across as a bomb. Now, I want to touch on this before we get to our featured interview. Ameer Abdullah chirping a little bit. And I think a lot of people that heard it, he went on the I Am Stereo Michael Rappaport podcast. If you haven't heard it, you got to check it out. The dude is just spewing things left and right. Michael Rappaport is now a sports personality, and he's one of those guys that just doesn't care.
Dude, did you listen to that podcast?
Yeah, I did.
I listened to 40-some minutes of it, and I was bored out of my mind.
Oh, some other ones are different, but he does get guests. He does make news, and the news from that podcast featuring Ameer Abdullah is he kind of came out and said, look, the Lions aren't using me right. And he kind of said, look, I think that I'm not getting into a rhythm most days, and that if I get one carry out of every 15 snaps, how you expect me to get production? And many people interpreted it as, oh, this guy's screaming to get cut. And I felt the same way. I think that he knows the lay of the landscape. He knows Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn are not going to be really thrilled to hear that, especially when others have said that, look, this guy's probably only going to get 25 carries. He's going to be nothing. He's going to be insignificant, making $500 to $800K, really a nothing player, probably might have a chance of being cut before the season starts. So do you think that's just him screaming and basically auditioning himself, self-promoting if he gets cut to go somewhere else? I feel like that's what it screams of. Good for him, because I think that you have to defend yourself, and you have to say, look, it's not all me. I was part of some offensive lines that were brutal, but I think the fans look at it and go, dude, you got some weaknesses. You got some big holes, and that you're a slow cat and you fumble a lot. So it's a mixture of both. It's a bad system. It's a horrible system for him to be in. And also, he hasn't taken advantage. You can't be a 2-yard runner. You can't just be a guy that give the ball to and get 2 yards. You can't. So I think it's a good thing for him to state his case. Lions cut him. Let him go to a system and give him a chance.
Look, right now, he's the fourth running back on this depth chart, right?
Yeah.
I don't exactly know how he fits into what they're looking to do going forward. He's not very good, at least not in the system that they're utilizing him. I never liked him. I never wanted him on this team. I always thought he had fumble issues coming out of college. So if they cut him, sweet. I look like a genius in retrospect because I didn't want his ass here in the first place. All right? But him going on Michael Rappaport's podcast saying all this, look, I think he makes a case for himself. I think that he doesn't want to necessarily be here or doesn't want to be utilized the way that they're looking to utilize him. I get it. That's fine. I think he's a prime candidate to get cut, to go get picked up by a team like, I don't know, the Patriots, and then to be a really productive back. He just doesn't fit in this scheme, and I don't think he fits with this team. I don't have any issues with him necessarily saying what he said, because it's just a guy who wants to sit there and speak his piece, and he says, hey, I need to get into a rhythm. Cool, bro. I can't count on you with the ball, though, because you usually average 3 yards a carry, if that, and then when you're not averaging 3 yards a carry, you're fumbling the ball. I can't count on you when it's crunch time. I can't count on you when it's game time. On top of all that, you've been injured so much. You've been in and out of the lineup so much in your early career. How do I even have a gauge on what you bring to this team? It's really, really difficult. Looking at the way this running back depth chart is kind of setting up right now, I think Kerryon Johnson's going to be your featured back. I think your smasher, the guy who's going to get you those tough yards, is going to be LeGarrette Blount. And then your change of pace guy is going to be Theo Riddick. And I feel really comfortable with those three guys at the top of the chart. I don't feel comfortable with Ameer Abdullah. I don't know what he is. I would say, hey, let's use him on special teams. But I don't think he can return punts. I don't think he can return kickoffs. And I don't really trust him to do any of those things just because I don't have confidence that he's going to be able to hold on to the ball. I mean, I wish I could. I have to go back and I'll have to find our podcast where we sat there and we reviewed that Lions draft because I was so critical of that pick. I hated that pick coming out because he had baby hands. And that was what I said. I said he had baby hands. He can't hold on to the damn football. I think that was the draft that they could have had David Johnson. And that was the guy who I wanted them to go get later on in that draft. And this pick still frustrates me years later. I'm so upset by it. I think I'm more upset by this pick than I am by the Eric Ebron pick.
The point that I'll disagree with you is he probably will get an opportunity, but I don't think he'll be successful. I think that you got to have a certain skill set to succeed in the NFL. And sometimes lines do break apart with injury, and you got to be able to hold the football, and you got to show it. You got to be able sometimes to hit the hole and fall forward. And I think that's why they went out and got Kerryon Johnson, is that the Lions believe that he can be an every down back. I think he can be maybe a productive third down back.
Ameer Abdullah's not even a speedster. He was brought in to be a speedster, and he's not even that quick.
Speed?
Yeah. You're not even that fast.
Exactly.
What are we talking about here?
Exactly. All right, let's take our final timeout. We'll come back with the number one podcaster in the entire world. Adam Carolla will be on Doc and Jock right after this. Thanks, everybody, for your continued support. Adam and I couldn't be able to do a great podcast without your support. Free and easy way to support us. Real simple. Go visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's how we grew the operation. It's how we were able to develop a network of shows that people like and follow, and that's how we've been able to get great guests. Free and easy way. It's all we ask. Help keep the lights on in the studio and the microphones hot. Go visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out. Let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel. A bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain. Break the whole damn table.
As advertised, the number one podcaster in the world. He's coming to Detroit, the Royal Oak Music Theater, Friday, 8 p.m. If you don't already have tickets, go check out AdamCarolla.com. Adam, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, now we watch a lot of comedy specials, Adam and I. Are you shooting one in the near future?
Yeah, I'm going to be shooting one in Portland on the June 9th, Portland.
Excellent.
So this will be like the last show I do before I shoot the comedy special.
How excited are you? Because I do believe that, you know what, when we look at comedy specials, we see a bunch, but you are a master of improv. We definitely want to see you on television with the stand-up special. How excited are you ahead of shooting a comedy special on television?
Trepidatious, nervous, but I've never done one. I'm going to turn 54, and I've never done an actual stand-up special. So we should probably film one before I die.
So now you're a guy who has his hands in all kinds of work. You do television, you do radio, you do podcasting. Like John said, you're the number one podcaster in all the land. You're actually the inspiration for our podcast and kind of the layout that we run with. Not too long ago, you wrote a book, so you're an author as well, not Taco Bell material. People now want to make $15 an hour to work at Taco Bell. Have we gone too far from reality here?
Yeah, because the point is you need a certain degree of misery. If you are in a job and you're working at Taco Bell and that's enough to pay the rent and pay for the kids' braces and you actually kind of enjoy it, then you're not going to be propelled to leave like I was when I worked at McDonald's when I was 16. I was miserable every second I was on that job. I was getting $2.41 an hour, and all I could do is dream of getting the hell out of there.
A lot of people, I don't even think are Taco Bell material these days. I think a lot of people just want to sit around, smoke weed, maybe stay on the government dole. How do we inject what you constantly say on your podcast, grit, motivation, the drive for success? How do we interject more of that into people? Because I feel like with legalization of marijuana across the country, with competition from the government, with all the handouts, how do we interject more grit to get more people at least qualified to work at Taco Bell?
Well, the first thing we have to do is change that narrative of, everyone who's successful, it's daddy's money, or, it must be who you know, or, white privilege, which is always comical to me and all my stupid, poor white trash friends, and focus on when you see that guy driving the Rolls Royce. Back in the day, you'd go, there's Mr. Jones. He works hard and he's successful. And hey, Tommy, little Tommy, one day you should be like Mr. Jones. Now it's like, hey, let's get a rock and throw it at that guy's car. Screw him. We need to change that narrative a little.
Earlier this week, sticking with the government stated that it was unconstitutional to prevent sports betting at the federal level. Does this make you more eager to go out there and lay some big bets on your LA Rams? Now, I know you like to lay down a hefty wager now and again.
In a weird way, it's kind of it's ruined it for me because I like those conversations like my bookie, I got a bookie, I know a guy, where you'd have to make a call like back in the day when you have to score some weed, or like when you were 16 and you'd wait in front of the liquor store for the guy who drove the van and had the sideburns, and you're like, hey, could you get us a 6-pack of Mickey's Big Mouth, dude? Like there was a foreplay to it,
Right. It's too inclusive now.
It made the beer taste that much better.
Right.
Yeah, it's too easy now.
What do you think this is going to mean for like across the board for the United States? Do you think that sports betting and sports books are going to start opening up, like you said, kind of on every corner? You turn around, you want to go to the 7-Eleven, they got a sports book in there.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think, look, here's the deal. Whether it's pot or booze or gambling or chili fries, like we're just going to have to start policing ourselves. And I don't want the government policing us. We need to get used to policing ourselves. Like, you shouldn't be doing things, whether it's murder or cocaine. You shouldn't not do it because the government says it's illegal. You should not do it because it's wrong. And so I like this self-policing mode, which is if you want to have some chili fries, have some chili fries on occasion. If you want to gamble, do some gambling within reason. And if you want to kill someone, make sure they're super annoying.
I like that.
Now, Adam, on Friday, you're coming back to Royal Oak. You're going to perform a stand-up routine from the book, Not Taco Bell Material. What is your assessment of the Detroit comedy scene? And when you've come to town, how do you rate Detroit as a scene in terms of the comedy world?
Well, the first thing I do is I go to either one of the Coney Island dogs and eat. I can't figure out. I ate at one of the Coney Island dog places. I can't figure out how any of it works. But look, the Royal Oak is great. I don't really look at the Royal Oak as the Detroit comedy scene per se, but I've been there. I think I was at the Royal Oak like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and it was great. It's a great theater, but again, I don't feel like it's Detroit proper, and I guess it's not.
Part of the reason why you're so successful as a comedian and the number one podcaster is we've observed your master level of improvisation, and you've spoke on it greatly to your staff, to those even you've let go, that you say, look, I think it's very important for somebody to have a wide range of skills. What has I want to tap into, what has made you a great improvisational comic, and can you teach that to somebody as well if they don't take classes? It really has done you well, and it makes your podcast that we listen to every day very enjoyable. The ability to think quick on your feet and your improvisation is amazing, and it's definitely a worthwhile show to go to this Friday.
Thank you. Now I feel under a lot of pressure to say something super witty. I took a lot of improv classes, groundling classes. I was with the Acme Theater. I did tons of that stuff, but I owe it mainly to not being able to read. I realized my entire childhood of not being able to read made me have to just think on my feet and pop off and talk out loud. And I was never the kind of person that just grabbed a good book and curled up in front of the fire. I instead just stood on the hearth and yelled at everyone because I couldn't read. So I think ultimately not being able to read and write my entire younger life has made me more adept at doing improv.
Now, recently you had John Cena on your podcast. It was a very interesting interview, and that's an interesting cat, John Cena, a guy that, made it to the top of the wrestling world, now is transitioning, trying to make it out there in Hollywood. But I don't know if you got a chance to see him hosting the Today Show. It just kind of came across to Adam and I as a little bit corny that he's out there kind of breaking down his relationship. And I know you wrote a book, In 50 Years, We'll All Be Chicks. It just seemed to me, staring at him, a man that is, a multimillionaire, going through things, has a reality show, but now he's on the Today Show just kind of spewing his love and trying to get his girl back. When we said, Adam and I, we were like, you know what? This is a great opportunity. You're 40 years old. You're a multimillionaire. Go out there and play the field. You don't have to have kids with this young lady. Why go out there and profess your love to somebody in that manner? Did that come across as corny to you?
Yeah, that could have been the Pinot Grigio talking, because, when a 270-pound dude has 2 sips of Pinot Grigio, the floodgates open. I don't know what's going on with John Cena. All the emotion of a Pinot Grigio. And I think Hoda and Kathy Lee will bring it out of any wrestler. I don't know. It seems weird, but also we're living in a time where everyone just takes to the public forum and either, ask for their wife back or call somebody a douchebag, or, I don't know. Everything is just being done in the public forum. We used to have a little something called decorum, and now it's a bunch of people flying in flip-flops and cut off sweats with their fake service dog on their lap. So I guess everything is just aired in the public forum these days.
So you're we've already established you do a ton of stuff. What's your assessment on John Cena as an actor? What do you think his ceiling is? Do you think he gets to ascend to like the Rock level, or do you think he's just going to kind of be a guy who fills a certain role and he's kind of you need a big brooding type of guy who's got a little bit of wit and he's kind of funny? We'll go get John Cena. Do you think he's going to be kind of a cutout of what he could be?
I feel like in order to make it to the top of the wrestling world, you need to have a crazy motor, but you also have to be able to politic and campaign. And so I think these wrestlers, the ones that aren't junkies at least, have this amazing ability. Think about what it takes to ascend to the ranks of a John Cena in wrestling. So I will always bet on these guys because I think they take that same mentality and they bring it from the ring onto the set.
Now, Adam, we'll get you out of here on this. And again, Adam Carolla is coming to the Royal Oak Music Theater this Friday. Definitely get your tickets, AdamCarolla.com. Adam and I have been to several of Adam's shows. We've never not left feeling good, laughing our asses off. Adam does a great job. Now, an underrated, I believe, aspect of what makes your podcast awesome is your interviews. You have a lot of guests daily. It kind of feels like everyone's a fly on the wall in terms of listening in to your conversations. If you could give us 1 or 2 tidbits to interview better or make conversation seem as flawless as you do, what could you give us in terms of when you're interviewing somebody, whether they're on the phone or whether they're in your midst, a celebrity or somebody that has a lot of knowledge? What makes for a good interview in your mind as a listener?
My advice would be, don't have a list of questions asked, because sometimes people will say, like, I heard you were in the service, and the person will say, I'm a Green Beret. I actually killed bin Laden. And they go, interesting. In high school, you were on the water polo team. Tell us about that, because you have next question lined up. My thing is you can have some questions written down, but don't just get to the next one. Explore what the answer was. Now, if somebody says, I heard you were in the service, and the guy goes, yeah, I was in the rear with the gear. I did 3 years, and then I was discharged. Well, then you can probably move forward. But you might get something really interesting, and then don't just gloss past it.
Exactly. And all I can say to you, Adam, is that we listen every day. We're fans of your work, obviously. We have the utmost respect for what you do, and for you to carve out time in your busy day. I know you're going to be lining up a busy day, and we can't wait to hear about it. So thank you for carving out time in your busy day. Check out AdamCarolla.com. You've been an inspiration to us in the world of broadcasting and podcasting, and we can't thank you enough for the time. We hope to do it again, and enjoy the trip to Cleveland and the road trip. Hey, stay safe on the road, okay? Because I don't know, you've talked a lot about some issues with Mike August. Stay safe on the roads out there, okay?
Don't worry, I'll survive the crash. I'm always drunk in the passenger seat.
That's good, because it keeps your body limp. That's why all the drunk drivers always survive.
Yeah.
Super relaxed.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for the time, Adam. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That was Adam Carolla. Always enjoy the conversation. It just blows my mind that a guy that busy could take time out, and I just definitely wanted to get some insights on his interview skills and the thing that makes him tick. And I think that's exactly right, is that when you listen to his podcast or his stand-up, he's so flawless, and he says, people ask him, like, how do you just do stand-up for 90 minutes? And he'll just be like, well, I've done it 1,000 times, so it's just easier. And he'll be, like I said, just recently interviewed John Cena, and he'll interview politicians, dignitaries, and things like that. So a guy like that, the number one podcaster, I don't know, I hope I never lose that awe feeling, like, man, the number one guy just gave us 15 minutes of his time, and he always talks about it like his time is valuable. He goes from thing to thing. It's an amazing opportunity to talk to a guy like that, and I'm glad that at least a little bit of time was carved out for DocNJock. And I know you're like, well, it's a comedian, things like that. What'd you think interviewing him, sitting there, listening to the questions? And dude's just naturally funny, right?
Yeah, he's funny. He's a funny guy. I know, like, you love him. Like, that
Big fan. Obviously, can you tell?
Yeah, that like, you were gushing over there. I'm glad that the tabletop is here, because the underneath is totally sticky right now, and I didn't get hit in the eye, so that was cool. But yeah, he's a funny guy. He's that's your dude, man. And I think it's cool that we have this platform where you can kind of connect with a guy who's a huge hero to you and a huge inspiration specifically for you. Like, I like him. I think he's a funny guy, but like, you can tell you get giddy whenever we get a chance to talk to him. Like, your face lights up. It's funny. Like, I say this like a mom talking about a kid on Christmas.
Now I'm going to look through the video. I'm just like, it's just great because you said it, and I think we gave him the proper respect, which is the inspiration for a network was basically us going to his website, and our first website just was a copy of it. And it's just a guy like that that's successful, that you don't talk to a lot of people that just change an industry. Like, the guy was on radio, got let go, had a contract, and was like, okay, I'm going to do my own thing. And it was there, but he took it to a level where first podcast,
level,
250,000 downloads, and he was just hanging out with his crew and started a network, and all of us wouldn't be sitting here having these chats without him. And it's just an amazing thing. I just like the guy, and I've met him, I've talked to him, and dude is just, I don't know. And anybody that does a show called The Man Show and has ladies jumping on trampolines and drinks beer.
That was a selling point.
You know what? When you listen to him, he told a funny story in that he was driving with Jimmy Kimmel, right? And they were listening to these corny sports radio guys, right? And he's like, so you know what Jimmy Kimmel does? He calls in as a black guy and does like a black voice just to rattle the guys on the air. And it's just like bros hanging out. And that's what it's like. If you don't listen to his podcast, listen, I'm a daily listener. I download it religiously. Not all of them. I download the Adam Carolla Show each and every day. It's funny, witty, and things like that. And he took classes. And listen, if you don't like him, I'm sorry, man. He's a funny dude.
Yeah, he's
twice on our network.
He's naturally funny, and he's got a natural charisma about him. which makes him really interesting and fun to talk to. So again, I think it's fun to see you light up, because there's not many things in this world that really get you super amped and super hyped, right? Like, you were excited to go to Ring of Honor's War of the Worlds. Check that out. We talk about it, give a real nice in-depth preview on our wrestling podcast that drops every Friday right here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. But you got excited for that. But this guy, like this grown-ass man, gets you so jazzed up. Like, it's amazing. It's like getting that toy racing track when you were a little kid, and you're like, oh my God, I got it. Let's go race. And you just spend all day long in the basement racing cars. That's Adam Carolla to you. It's
That
awesome.
is, because what it is that when you are talking to somebody and he's the best at what you're doing, and then you're like, I think also what heightens it is the first go around, he just flat out, his crew said, we're busy. And and we stuck with it. And the story was 3 years ago, we tried to get him on, and his guy was like, we're busy. Now he's promoting a Detroit show, and he's on the big 3 shows. And one of them was DocNJock, and that's awesome. And then you got a chance. The first go around, it was just me, and I'm glad it worked out. And the funny thing is, I know you saw the story where the assistant that helped book it gave me the wrong date and the wrong month and the wrong day. And I was with Vito sitting here going, wait a minute, that's next month. Why would he give us next month? Okay, we'll take it. We'll book it out 3 months in advance. That doesn't matter to me. And we're like, wait a minute, it's the wrong day, not a Wednesday. And we're like, well, okay. And then he came back and said, sorry, man, it's Wednesday before the show. We'd love to have an opportunity. And I'm like, yes, Adam can interview him too. Now, another belt notched for you as well, is that you interviewed the #1 most downloaded podcaster in the world. And dude, also, not just a podcaster, he also had a storied radio career in that Loveline was syndicated nationally. He made $1 million doing radio. So to get at least a couple of insights from him, and to know that the man probably now is about to go do 5-6 podcasts and break it down and things like that. We were rapping about, his time and things like that. And that's all he wanted, was to get Adam to tell jokes and be funny. And I think we did that. How'd you think the interview went?
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I think
maybe it didn't flow 100%.
Yeah,
kind of we did the whole kind of list thing.
Yeah, I felt it was a little bit herky-jerky. But I think that was just...
You know why? Because I can give you the reason is the pressure's put that he said there's a limit. It's like, hey, there's a limit of time. So if I knew we had 40 minutes with the guy, we could delve more into it. But I don't think we neglected anything that he said that we could have expounded upon. And I wanted to hit on those points. So
I think going into that interview, I think there were certain things that we wanted to talk about and we wanted to touch on. We also wanted to put his show over as much as possible.
Yes.
And it was one of those things like, okay, here, you guys have 10 minutes, maybe 12 with me.
I think that's what we got.
Yeah, and it's like you have to check all the boxes.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? And
good enough.
Yeah,
good. But it could be better, yeah. In that maybe, maybe a guy like that. Because our biggest fear is we don't want to be talking and him going, I got another call. Can we wrap this up?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And because I want him to want to be on with us. And look, it could be a business. It doesn't matter to me. I just want, the opportunity to talk to the man and get as many insights as possible, put over his show and have a conversation and tell him, look, I'm not just some guy that just called you up. I'm a fan. Yeah. And that's all I wanted to say to him is continue as many times as I could say, look, I'm a fan. You signed my books and things like that. And it was fun. And it makes
I bought your wine.
I bought your wine. I bought your books. I bought everything and things like that. And he delivered it. And it was a fun conversation. Great podcast, sir. Always when you have Adam Carolla, it's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Real good show this week. Yeah, I felt like we left a little bit on the table, but that's what's cool about this, right?
Wanting them a little bit more, and we can tease it. Definitely next week we'll peek into maybe if some Detroit Lions fall on the NFL top 100 list that's airing. I haven't seen any yet, so probably Stafford's probably going to be in one of the final 2 shows as a top 20 player. We'll see where he ranks.
Ooh, you got him going top 20.
I think so. I think he probably will be ranked maybe 19th, 18th. I think it's going to be an uptick because of potential.
He was, 39 last year.
Yeah, so we'll see. Okay.
I think you could have possibly, I'm going to put it out there right now, that the top 60 still have to air. I think you could possibly have 3 guys going. For sure Stafford's in there. It's just where he's going to fall. But you could possibly have up to 3 dudes hit the list. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, a couple things we'll tease for next time is where some lines land on the NFL top 100. Let's see if this story evolves with Matt Patricia. And we'll definitely talk about the settlement. $500 million Michigan State is giving to the survivors of the Larry Nassar situation. And we'll see what that signifies. what the reaction is, and does this begin the process of healing for Michigan State? Because it's still a dark cloud right now.
Aren't you happy you already graduated from there and you don't got to contribute to that $500 mil?
Exactly. You know how much?
Holy cow!
I'm an alumni.
Be so
I feel bad
if I was a student going there.
We'll leave you with this. I'm an alumni. They message me. I'm part of an alumni group.
Oh, they did message you.
Do you know how much I've donated back to the university?
No.
As much as Amazon pays in taxes federally. Zero. I just look at it like it was a mutual trade-off, mutually beneficial. I got the education. I paid for it. And that's the boundary for me. I don't feel the need, like, my boundary, and I get those that do, is if I was a multi-billionaire, there'd be a John Macaroon, suite
something
somewhere.
Or another.
Yeah. Or a rock with my name on it. I would do that. But in the absence, I'm a regular guy. I don't feel the need to be connected like that. I'm a supporter. I'm a fan, but I'm not dropping money out of my kid's pocket to give to Michigan State. I don't
that's
have
like
that.
Oakland University
that's a little too
messages me. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, will you donate?
No.
Check me out next year.
For the
I don't
Jock,
make any money, bro.
Yeah, for the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Thank you so much to Adam Carolla. We'll talk to everybody next time. Thank you.
Go Lions-ish, maybe. Vegas Knights.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out. And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.